Before we get into this video, let's watch a little bit of expert bike fitter Neil Stanbury suffer.
Day 22, update. I think I've bitten off more than I can chew. It's getting a little harder. His methods are very unusual. He's put zip ties on my helmet. I've come out into the shed to make this video because I'm worried that he's gonna be at the front door when I go home.
So welcome back to the RCA Training Tips Show, where today we start sharing the journey of how we're taking Neil Stanbury from a very low level of cycling fitness back to his cycling glory days. Now, if you missed the initial video, I'll link it up there, but essentially Neil Stanbury's had roughly 6 months off the bike completely and probably a few years off any serious training, but now he's motivated, as you can see, and we're getting him back on track. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the 3 main steps that we've taken Neil Stanbury through up front in the first 4 to 5 week period to get him on the right cycling training plan. And look, these 3 steps I'm going to share with you are pretty much the same 3 steps that we take members that join the RCA's up-level road cycling course through. And look, that course is actually open as we speak, which Neil is a part of. And the course only opens during certain points of the year, which includes a number of video tutorials, as you can see there. And we only make a certain amount of spots available to ensure we can deliver on a solid member experience to all. So if you'd like to join Neil Stanbury in the up-level road cycling course's August intake, after watching this video, I'll provide relevant links below. So step number 1, because Neil has literally not been riding at all, the first thing we got him to do was just ride his bike. Roughly 3 times a week, 1 to 2 hours max, riding at an easy to moderate pace. Why do we do this? Well, we want to re-establish some of Neil's aerobic capacity, start activating some of his cycling muscular strength before we start him on any strenuous training or testing. And while it is human nature to want to go to the top of the ladder straight away, at the RCA, we use an approach called the step ladder approach, which I'll share more info about below, but ultimately meaning we're taking small steps for long-term success. Step 2, ultimately to set Neil up for success, we need to assess his aerobic base fitness. How do we determine his aerobic base fitness? Well, we need to find out what Neil's zone 2 aerobic power output is. So how do we do that? Well, at the RCA, assuming you've got an indoor trainer, we like to use a test on the Sufferfest called the Half Monty. Now, before we talk about the Half Monty, let's watch some scenes of Neil suffering first.
All right, here we are. We're going to have our first crack at the FTP test. I'm completely unfit. I've got no idea what I'm doing. I've done one of these a long time ago, but I think it was a flat out 20-minute effort. So this is something different. Cam called it the Half Monty. Don't really know what that means. So I'm half undressed, which is, I assume, what he wants. I don't know. I just winging it here. Got no idea. The other critical pieces of equipment for an FTP test, I have a half-eaten jar of Nutella and a large spoon for refueling along the way. And I think I might have mentioned this before, but the zip-tied helmet. Cam has told me that I actually have to wear it during the FTP test, even though we're on a trainer. Which again, it seems strange, but he's the coach, so I'm just going to go with it.
So I should add there that you should not stand during this test. That was my fault for not sharing that with Neil prior, but the footage you saw too. I was not enjoying a good laugh when I downloaded the footage last week. And look, while we like to take the training seriously at the RCA, we're always having a good time and a good laugh too. So thanks to Neil for sharing that footage with me. But back on track, we get members to complete the Half Monty, as discussed, assuming they've got an indoor trainer, because it's more effective than the traditional pure ramp test, given the 20-minute sustained effort after the ramp. And it's more practical than the 20-minute test outdoors in many ways. For example, you can create a consistent environment to complete the test. It's easier to get the test right versus the pacing effect of the 20-minute test. It's less daunting versus an all-out 20-minute effort. It's easily accessible versus trying to find a quiet bit of road for the 20-minute test, and it gives you 3 numbers to benchmark from. Those 3 numbers are FTP, maximal aerobic power, otherwise known as your VO2 max, or lactate threshold heart rate. And by being more practical, you're more likely to implement into your training regime on a regular basis. Now, if you don't have an indoor trainer, just going to need to suck it up and do the 20-minute test outdoors. So step number 3, now that we have Neil's FTP, we can work out his cycling training zones, or what I like to call the cycling weight rack, by plugging the FTP number into an RCA calculator, which all RCA members get access to. So from there, we can work out Neil's zone 2 number, and at the RCA, we like to go, depending on the athlete, anywhere between 65 to 70% of FTP, which for Neil, we worked out at 140 watts. Now, this next step is super critical as part of step 3, which is assessing Neil's current aerobic base fitness. How did we do this? Well, I got Neil to sit on the indoor trainer and pedal for an hour at 140 watts. He was wearing a heart rate monitor, and over the course of 1 hour, we assessed how his cardiovascular system responded, which the heart is the cornerstone of, to aerobic power output. Now, you can do this test outdoors as well if you've got a quiet bit of road where you can maintain a consistent pedal stroke, which is the key to this test. So an outdoor velodrome or something like that is great, but ultimately, if you have an indoor trainer, that is going to be your best path for this test. And as you can see, from looking at Neil's data in today's plan, which is the training software all RCA members gain access to, we have a pretty clear heart rate drift line. Now, we like to measure it from around the 15-minute mark once warm to see what happens over the course of the hour. Neil's drifted roughly 10 beats, which is basically telling us that Neil's cardiovascular system is stressing under an aerobic zone 2 load in just 1 hour. Now, we tell RCA members if they do this test and they get to the hour and their heart rate has drifted by around 5 beats or less, then continue to the 90-minute mark. So we have an additional data point. But as you can see from this graph, it's a compelling piece of data we can use to determine what to do with Neil next. So what's next for Neil? Over the next 3 to 4 weeks, we have him working mostly at a zone 2 level 3 to 4 times a week. We will do a little bit of sub-threshold or zone 3 stuff, but mostly zone 2, that kind of 65 to 70% FTP. And for me as Neil's coach, I want to see that zone 2 heart rate number at a zone 2 power output lower and also less drift, which is going to be a demonstration that he's become more efficient at delivering oxygenated blood and nutrients to the working muscles. And that is a step in the right direction for us to then start transitioning into some high intensity work. And the reason why we do that, would you build the levels to a house before the foundation is not properly laid? You probably wouldn't do that. So why would you start high intensity work, high intensity training, when your aerobic engine is inefficient, as it is with Neil's? Now, if Neil had a target event in, say, 8 weeks' time, even 12 weeks' time, we might look at increasing or implementing a bit more intensity up front. But the fact is, Neil doesn't have any timeline pressures, so we can work his aerobic system first, get him nice and strong aerobically before we start adding the layers to the house. We've also put Neil on a very basic strength and conditioning plan, which he can do so from home to get his off-bike strength game rolling too. He'll be doing this 3 times a week, as you can see in his calendar there. And if you want access to this spreadsheet, I'll link it in the description area for you below. And Neil himself will actually catch you firsthand in the next update, which will probably be in about 3 to 4 weeks' time once he starts to implement a bit more high intensity training, once some of this base fitness foundation has been laid. If you've gotten value out of this video today, please give it a like. If you're yet to subscribe, make sure you do so if you want to see Neil Stanbury progress over the next 4, 8, 12 weeks, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Around 200 watts was kind of what I was expecting. It's a far cry from where I've been in the past, but you know, we're just at the very, very beginning of of this training block, so we're sort of hoping to see a fair bit of improvement across the 12 or 16 weeks that Cam puts me through. So, Cam, you got to crack the whip now. I'm expecting some hard workouts, a few more challenges. That was reasonably unpleasant, so I'm going to go and have a shower.